What's the wildest cheating story you've witnessed or happened to you?
Experience 1. My friend's mom was in a relationship with a guy for years and they ended up getting engaged and due to marry. The guy was a senior director of a company for which he traveled every week abroad for business. Eventually, the guy had a heart attack, and when my friend's mom turned up at the hospital, his wife and 2 kids were there also. Turned out he was already married with children and living a double life the whole time. When he went abroad for business, he was simply going back to his actual family. Experience 2. My dad did this. He worked nights and would juggle both families that way. He came clean after he got admitted to the hospital for heart trouble and realized that if things went badly, he'd end up in this exact situation. I was 16 when he came clean that I have an older brother and sister. They found out about me then too, as did his wife. I'd actually already figured it out before he told me though. Nobody else had. I saw a preview of a text on my dad's phone from my sister. I didn't know she was my sister obviously, but it said, "Hi Dad, Mum says." At first, I was in denial, and I thought his friend must have borrowed his phone or something. I started to watch him more closely. He had a ringtone, LOL the aughts, that would say the name of the caller. I noticed whenever a certain name rang, he'd leave the room. Some tactical eavesdropping later, and 15-year-old me had it figured out that I had a brother and sister. I didn't know I had a stepmother though, or that I was family number 2, and they were his primary family. But I still think I did pretty well. My whole family on my mom's side knew Mom respected that it was my dad's secret to tell, and she gave him time to tell it. Although they did have a few arguments about it as I was growing up, I never knew what they were about at the time. Experience 3. A friend caught her husband cheating because he kept coming home smelling like ferrets. Hard to play off long day at work and explain that. When she found out at a holiday party that one of the young female coworkers owned ferrets, it all made sense. Experience 4. Was in rehab, and 2 people were there for intercourse addiction, one a minister and the other a Jewish housewife. They left rehab together early. The woman divorced her husband who sent her to rehab for sex addiction and married the guy she met in rehab. They are still married 10 years later and seem very happy. Experience 5. I knew a guy years ago who was a private investigator. Many times, he was approached by a spouse who suspected their partner was cheating. He had a slam dunk strategy. He would suggest his client sign up for a course, whether a hobby thing or educational. The key was that the class would happen for a period of weeks, all on the same day of the week, and all at the same time of day. Then, while his client was in class, he would follow the spouse. Caught them every time. Experience 6. Had a coworker who cheated on her live-in boyfriend. She would tell him she was going for a run, put on her shorts without underwear, and would screw her side piece in the apartment parking lot. So, then she would come back inside sweaty 30 minutes later and needed to shower, and it all made sense to her boyfriend. He never questioned it. She was an awful human. Experience 7. A family friend's husband was having an affair for 20+ years, and that woman knew the entire time about his family. He was at her ranch one time and was bucked off a horse and broke his back. The affair partner called his wife to tell her and acted like everything about the situation was normal, and the wife had no reason to act all upset at the affair. Some people really just have no shame. Guy lived and made a complete recovery, left his mistress, and they stayed together since they were working on their relationship. He died a few years ago, and the wife finds out he never actually left his mistress, just lied. Experience 8. I used to go to a comic shop. And the comic shop owner knew all of the gossip in the area. Nice dude. Remembers all of his regulars and asks about you if he hasn't seen you in a while to check in on people. A lot of people in the area grew up with his shop. So, he's got stories. Anyway, he told us about this story from some years back about this regular who disappeared for a few months. Comes back one day, and the shop owner asks him, "Hey, man, haven't seen you in a while? Kind of like where to have you been?" The regular was like, "Oh, I've been getting divorced. I had to move, it was a whole thing." So naturally the shop owner asks, "Why are you divorcing your wife?" The regular caught his wife cheating. He had picked up a second part-time job as a pizza delivery man because he was trying to fund to take his wife on her dream vacation. All of the money he earned from that job was supposed to go into that vacation. He had been working this job for like 6 months. It was a whole secret. She didn't know he was doing that for her, because he was trying to surprise her. He was the pizza delivery man at the motel. She was cheating on him with. The dude she was cheating on him with answered the door with her right next to him. He apparently didn't even go back to the pizza place. He quit on the spot. Went home. Packed his stuff and left town. Experience 9. Had everyone over for my birthday, lots of drinks and laughs later. Most of my friends left and I told the remaining few they could either let themselves out or crash as I was going to bed. Woke up at 3 in the morning to get a drink of water and found my then boyfriend, who lived with me and best friend of 10 years, hooking up on my couch. Experience 10. That sucks that happened to you. I was in a similar situation. My best friend and girlfriend threw my 23rd birthday party. The best birthday party I'd ever had up to that point. I felt like I was in such a great place. Girlfriend and a best friend who got me so well and seemed to want the very best for me. Also, this was the first time my girlfriend ever met my sister and they hit it off immediately. I was so happy because that doesn't always happen with my sister. Anyway, we all eventually crash. The next morning my girlfriend is lying next to me, she gives me a big kiss when we wake up because who gives a crap about morning breathing when life is so great? She was in school out of town, so she went away for the week as usual. In that week my best friend broke. He confessed to me that she had come into his bedroom, the party was at his house, in the middle of the night and woke him up by sucking his D. He relented that he let it go on for a bit longer than it should have. I was devastated. I left at that moment and broke up with her over the phone. Epilogue, about 2 weeks later I was hanging out with my best friend and some other folks. Drinks turned to words turned to insults that had nothing to do with my ex or what happened, mind you, insults, resulting in a brutal fight on the floor of a dirty laundry room with all of our friends watching, confused, no one knew what had happened yet, lol. Eventually, we both got up off the ground and both yelled some affirmations to each other about the real reason for the fight. We agreed to take a walk together and talk about it. We walked for miles all the way back to his house and hung out the rest of the night. He apologized and all that jazz and we're still friends. The end. Experience 11. The roommate was sleeping with his boss who was married with a child. She would arrive at our house at 5:30 a.m., having told her husband she was off to the gym, and they would have an early morning shag, shower, get ready and go off to work together. They would also do it at work in the bathrooms. On weekends he would go do his food shopping and she would coincide with her food shopping, so they would walk around the store together doing their shopping. He came home one night and sat my other roommate and me down and told us that within the next 6 months, she would be getting a divorce and they were going to have a kid together. Let's just say she's still married and he's got a new job. They were lawyers, so much for being fit and proper. Experience 12. Just got home from deployment on an anniversary trip with my, now ex-wife to Vegas. We go to a couple of cirque shows, do some pai gow, get a very fancy dinner, the whole anniversary spared no expense experience. She was passed out drunk and her phone was blowing the hell up with like 20 messages from an unsaved number. So, I looked. They were very romantic and sexual messages and pictures. She had been texting him the whole night. Even while we were at dinner, she told him she wished he was there instead of me. She had been messaging him for months, my whole deployment basically. Well, I dug deeper and started reading other message chains. I found like 9 other affairs with both men and women. She was even a third in a throuple and caused the husband and wife to get divorced because she kept breaking the rules and freaking the husband without the wife there or behind her back. Experience 13. My dad cheated on my mom with a coworker. She suspected him of an affair but didn't know for sure until he didn't come home one night. I remember walking into the kitchen the next morning and asking my mom where he was. I was only 10 to 11 years old BTW, and she said,
"He didn't come home last night."
So, she called him at work, and he said he slept at a friend's place because he had too much to drink. My mom called the friend's wife, and she confirmed my dad was not there at all, and that's all my mom needed to know. It destroyed our family. My mom packed his crap and left it by the door. She got addicted to prescription pills afterwards and tried to kill herself. She only lived because I found her and called 911. After that, she just left, took off, and dumped me and my sister with my dad, who was ill-equipped to raise 2 almost teenagers. So, he met this super witch who was recently widowed. They got engaged, and before I knew it, I was living with her, and I had 6 stepbrothers and sisters. Things only got worse from there. I enlisted to get away from it all. The whole thing screwed me and my sister up pretty bad. Experience 14. The girl said she was approved for some class in another really far city after her grades in college were too good. The boyfriend paid all her travel expenses and gave her his credit card for this trip to this specific event. When she arrives in another city, she calls saying she won't come back and will live with this guy she met online and has been chatting with for months. Boyfriend went crazy to cancel the credit card he gave to her, found there was never any class, and she was almost expelled from the college because her grades were terrible. She just traveled to meet the other guy and still made boyfriend pay all her expenses. This happened about 15 years ago. I lost contact with her, but I remember she married the other guy. Experience 15. This is my wild story. My ex-husband, John, and I had been together for a total of 14 years, married for about a year and a half. We are only 32 and 33 years old. Last August, 2022, my dad died, and John wasn't there for me. He said that I was making him an emotional punching bag when I dared express disdain for him spending the entire day with friends. My dad died 3 days later, and every day after that, John showed me that he wasn't a supportive husband. We agreed to separate at the beginning of this year, and I moved into my best friend's condo. About 2 months later, John texted me that one of our best friends, Alexa, she was a bridesmaid in our wedding, had to be involuntarily admitted to the hospital, and the story was a whole mess. My best friends and I met with John a week or so later so that he could tell us the story. He told us that she had left self-deletion notes for her mom, her husband Ryan, and also John. And it turned out that she was in love with John and couldn't be with him, so she wanted to die. John told a long story of how he helped find her and got her involuntarily admitted, painting himself as a hero. A month later, I decided that Alexa and I could still be friends despite her being in love with my ex, someone I was no longer in love with. I invited her out for sushi, and she agreed. At first, things were normal. She said that she was with Ryan and things were fine. I finally told her I knew about the hospitalization and that she was in love with John. She got angry and told me the real story. She and John had started sleeping together a month-ish after our wedding in September 2021. She went on for a while about the emotional connection. Then she told me how they stopped for a bit and started again in the fall of 2022. She said that they didn't use condoms and she got pregnant. She told Ryan that they were pregnant, and together, they planned to announce to their families on Christmas about the baby. Sadly, John didn't want the baby, told her that he didn't care about her, etc. So, she decided to have an abortion. She showed Ryan a toilet full of blood and said, deadpan, that she had a miscarriage. And her mental health declined from there, and she wanted self-deletion in January of this year, over John and everything. Ryan had no clue until the day of her self-deletio attempt. I was livid after hearing the whole story. In April/May of this year, John and I got divorced. And I got diagnosed with cancer. I'm currently going through chemo, and I am writing from the hospital bed as I'm being admitted for an infection and my white blood cell counts are too low to leave. This past year has been the worst. Experience 16. I was 32, and she was cheating on me with her ex for like 6 months before I found out. The way I found out was she called me crying hysterically saying she killed him by accidentally running him over. I get all her belongings from the police and find all the evidence on her laptop with them screwing. An argument over me was what caused the running over. Police ruled it accidental, and she brags about it in bars to this day. She also ended up having a kid with a guy that had the same name as me and spells it exactly the same too. Edit, the way she ran him over was interesting too. Purposely at first, but he was alive under the tire, and she had a sudden change of heart. She jacked the car up using the car jack, but it slipped as she was attempting to pull him out. It was raining, and the car tire then crushed his ribcage and lungs, finishing him off. So technically he got run over twice in the same night. Experience 17. This happened in my village about 35 years ago, and it involved the best of friends who were a bit crazy. When one of the friends was going for the night shift at the local factory, the other would visit his wife. When the cheated husband suspected his wife of infidelity, he lied that he was going to the night shift for both his friend and his wife to see what would happen. Of course, he caught his wife and the friend in the act. When the husband burst in, his friend leapt through the closed window completely naked, leaving behind his clothes and dirty underwear. The husband took those soiled underwear and put them in his pocket, and he kicked his wife out of the house. The next day, he went all around the village showing the underwear and telling everyone that his wife was unfaithful with an idiot. As the story spread throughout the village, it eventually reached the lover's family, who happened to be wealthy. His father and uncle went to the cheated husband and asked him to stop spreading the story. He agreed, but on the condition that they buy the underwear for a sum equivalent to about 1,000 euros in today's money. The story's epilogue is that the betrayed husband took his wife back, and they continue to live together to this day. They even have grandchildren. However, the friends never reconciled. Experience 18. I was deployed with 2 guys. One was our medic, the other a mortarman. Both were married and the medic had some kids. He was dad to at least one of his own, pluses he had adopted his stepkids. We got back from deployment and found out the entire unit was moving to Germany. The medic and his wife hosted a party at their house before everyone left. During said party, the mortarman and the medic's wife teamed up for beer pong. They were getting a little too close to the point where a bunch of us were trying to wrap the party up before anything got out of control. The medic's wife was originally from Germany. She decided to get a head start on getting their house and family all set, moving over about a month before her husband. The mortarman, now in the middle of a divorce, was on the torch party for our battalion. He also got there early. The medic arrived later than expected due to a professional development school he had to attend. His house and family are set, but now his wife is pregnant. It's obvious to everyone that it's not his. He goes along with it for a while until the mortarman gets drunk and calls him. The mortar man admitted to screwing the medic's wife from pretty much the first day he got to Germany. He wanted to raise his kid. The medic got a divorce, fought for custody of his kid, and adopted kids and lost. About 7 years ago, I talked to him. The mortar man and the medic's ex got married, lasted about 6 months, and got divorced. The mortar man disappeared from her life and she had no real help with anything. Experience 19. I also have my own story. I just graduated high school and left for the army, and my girlfriend went to college. Between basic training and AIT, I was gone for just shy of a year. The entire time I was sending my girlfriend money to be able to go out and enjoy herself. Her parents were really poor, and she didn't have much income. Every weekend she would go out and party with her friends as most college kids would do. This went on for a year after I got back. On the weekends she'd spend the night Friday, all day Saturday, and then go out Saturday night and stay with her friend. I drove her to her friend's house multiple times and even bought them bottles of alcohol. Her friend would come out of the house, say hi to me, then I'd drive off. Turns out the house I was taking her to be a guy she'd be screwing for the last year I was in training. They both used me and my money to party their asses off and screw each other for the last year. And her friend was actually the dude's sister and encouraged her to cheat on me. So basically, I gave her $8,000 in 11 months while she used my money, my gas, and my car to go screw another dude, and in some twisted sick way, she got joy out of using me to literally drive her to his house and use my money. She tried crawling back a few months later after the dude cheated on her. I laughed and told her to go screw herself. Experience 20. Dated a woman for close to a year who I thought was divorced with a couple of kids. Kids lived out of state with their dad. I later found out she was only separated from him but had been for a couple of years before she and I began our thing. Okay, I guess. I'm already in the ish now, Johnny. Long story short, I found out when she would go and visit the kids that she and the ex were sleeping together. I only found this out after she told a mutual friend of ours that she was pregnant and I had a vasectomy. We broke up right then. She continued to call and text and email me for more than a year after. She begged for her and me to go on an annual escape together every year after she had the kid and got back together with him. She said she wanted at least 1 week a year to feel love and have her love in her life. She told me over and over again she knew she had messed up big time. Talk about sad and toxic behavior. Saw pics of the kid. Vasectomy definitely did not let me down. This all was so freaking messed up.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.